Chapter 1. I was always by his side.
For the longest time, I thought what I felt was just admiration. The way he'd laugh out loud at the most random moments, how he'd run his fingers through his hair when he got nervous, or how he'd crack terrible jokes just to see me smile. His name is Minjae, my best friend since high school, and also the person my heart quietly falls apart for over 4 years now. We grew up attached at the hip. People always said we were inseparable, but only I knew that the reason for my silence was fear. Fear of losing the little I had of him if I dared to want more. Minjae is straight, and I am just someone who settles for scraps. For the carefree hugs he gives me when he's too happy. For the random 3 a.m. texts saying, "Hey, don't sleep yet." For the "you're the only one who gets me" lines that to him are just friend talk. I thought I could handle it, that my place was exactly that, beside him, but never inside. But everything started changing when someone else showed up, and for the first time, someone looked at me as if they knew exactly what I was feeling, even though I'd never said a word.
Chapter 2. Smiles that hurt.
That Tuesday, he dragged me to the new campus cafe, said the matcha cake was mandatory, that the playlist was perfect, and that the place was so us. So us. I almost laughed, because if that place really was like us, it would have a table with 2 chairs, but only one would actually be occupied. Minjae talked nonstop. About the new professor, about basketball practice, about the girl from 3rd semester who smiled at him in the elevator. And I smiled, automatically, like always. But every sentence of his seemed to poke at a place I tried to ignore. Like when he said, if I were to date someone right now, it'd be someone like her. Beautiful, bubbly, and she loves ramen, just like me. And right after, you agree, right, Haru? I just nodded, but inside, something sank. That's when I saw him, sitting alone, 2 tables back, philosophy book open, headphones around his neck, calm gaze. The first time I laid eyes on Ren, I knew. I can't explain how. I just knew he was listening. Not to the whole conversation, but to the silence I made between sentences. When our eyes met for a second, he didn't look away, just stayed there, with that expression that said more than any words. It said, I saw. And in that moment, it was like I'd been read completely.
Chapter 3. The new classmate.
The following week, he showed up in class, backpack on, serene look, and the same philosophy book from before. They called him a late transfer, one of those students who switch colleges mid-semester for some reason nobody knows, and few have the courage to ask. Ren. He sat 2 rows behind mine, didn't make a scene, didn't greet anyone loudly, just observed everything like someone who'd been there before, or like someone who wasn't impressed by any place anymore. Minjae, of course, didn't even notice. He was too busy telling the class how he almost knocked over a skeleton cabinet in the anatomy lab. But I noticed. In the first few days, Ren didn't say anything to me. Not a hi, not a wave. But every time I turned slightly, he was watching. Not with judgment, not with superficial curiosity, but like someone slowly reading a story they already know, just to make sure they didn't miss anything the first time. One day, during break, when I went to get coffee alone, he was there again.
This coffee tastes like burnt medicine?
He said without looking at me. It was his first sentence to me. I almost laughed, but I just replied, "Even so, I drink it." He shrugged.
Sounds like something from someone who got used to what hurts.
I froze. And in that second, I knew he wasn't just another classmate.
Chapter 4. The First Discomfort.
He started showing up frequently, in the library, during breaks, in the lobby, always with a book in hand and headphones hanging around his neck, and still seemed to know everything that was happening around him, including what was going on between me and Minjae, or rather, what wasn't going on. Ren was never invasive, but he always appeared close enough for me to notice, and far enough away to not seem intentional. I tried to ignore it, but it was hard, especially that day. Minjae grabbed my arm and pulled me under a tree, laughing loudly with a juice bottle in his hand. "You need to hear the voice message that girl sent. It's hilarious." He leaned his shoulder against mine like he always did, as if the whole world fit in that contact. And that's when, in the middle of the grass, the bird sounds, and his laughter, I looked ahead. Ren was there, sitting alone on the stone bench, eyes on mine. It wasn't judgment. It was acknowledgement. I looked away and felt my face heat up as if I'd been caught doing something wrong. Later, when we were leaving the building, he approached me by the water fountain. Without looking directly, he just said,
Do you always look at him like that?
I froze. Like what? He took a sip of water and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand.
Like someone waiting to be seen, but already knowing they never will be.
My chest tightened in a way I couldn't hide, and for the first time, I walked away. Not because I wanted to leave, but because I didn't know how to stay.
Chapter 5. A conversation I never had with anyone.
It rained that afternoon. One of those fine, persistent rains that seemed to clean everything inside, except the mind. Minjae texted me saying he was going out with the athletic club crowd, and I, for some reason, felt relieved. Maybe it was exhaustion or fear of hearing another story that would make me shrink inside. I went to the library, not to study, just to be silent with something other than myself. And then he appeared, Ren. He sat at the same table, across from me, put his usual book on the wood and rested his chin on his hand. For a few minutes, he said nothing, until he let out,
How long have you liked him?
I didn't react, but I didn't pretend either. I just looked at the book I hadn't even opened and said, I don't know if it's liking or if it's just an addiction. Rin didn't interrupt me, just waited. He never did anything, never promised anything, but he also never pulled away. I got stuck in this middle ground that nobody sees, and now I don't even know if I can get out. I spoke quietly, as if confessing a crime. He leaned in a little. His voice was so calm it sounded like ambient music.
You're not wrong for feeling, but maybe you're forgetting to feel for yourself, too.
That dismantled me. I stayed silent.
You're so quiet. It seems like you want to disappear, but every time you look at him, you scream inside. I'm just listening.
When I looked up, he was looking at me. Without pity, without rush, without fear. Just present. And for the first time, I wanted to say everything, but I didn't. Not yet.
Chapter 6. It wasn't supposed to be like this.
There's a party today on the rooftop of Block D. Coming? Minjae sent me the message in the late afternoon, along with a 15-second voice note saying, "Everyone's gonna be there." I didn't want to go, but I did, because it was him. Because there was still a part of me that thought Maybe, just by being there, I'd be seen differently, or heard without having to scream. The music was loud, colored lights, plastic cups, loose laughter. Minjae circulated like he owned the place, greeting everyone, making jokes, dragging people to dance. And there I was, on the edge of the balcony, watching from afar, waiting. Until I saw him, leaning against the wall, laughing with a girl. She ran her hand through his hair, and he didn't pull away. Then he whispered something in her ear, and they both burst into laughter. My stomach churned. In a way I tried to control with a sip of the warm soda I'd been holding for half an hour. It wasn't anger. It was emptiness. That cruel certainty that no matter how close I was, I would never be there. I left before realizing I was leaving. The street was cold, damp. I walked fast without looking back. And then I heard footsteps behind me.
Do you always leave like that?
I turned. Rin. He had his jacket in his hands, hair messy from the wind, calm and steady gaze. "Did you follow me?" That's all I could say. He shrugged as if it wasn't a big deal.
I looked for you, saw when you left, figured you weren't okay.
I stayed silent, because if I opened my mouth, I'd break down.
Want to walk?
He asked. I just nodded, and we went. Two strangers who already knew everything about each other. Or maybe two lonelinesses trying to find each other.
Chapter 7. The Unexpected Confession.
We walked through almost empty streets, aimlessly. Neither of us said anything, just the sound of our steps wetting the barely evaporated rain puddles, and the silence. That kind of silence that doesn't weigh, just listens. We stopped at a neighborhood playground, old, surrounded by trees. Ren sat on the swing, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And I sat on the ground, with my legs crossed and my chest a bit too open to be so exposed. "Why are you always around?" I asked, without looking at him. He pushed the swing slowly. The sound of the chain creaking seemed to accompany the answer.
Because you always seem to be alone, even when you're not.
I stayed silent. Again, like always. But then I spoke. "I know he'll never love me." The voice came out low, cracked. "Even so, I stay. I stay because I don't know how not to stay." Ren stopped the swing. He kept looking at me with the calmest eyes I'd ever seen.
You should stop waiting for someone who'll never love you.
Pause. Held breath. Direct gaze.
Because I am already here.
I froze. The world stopped for 3 seconds. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't provocation. It was serious. So serious it hurt more than all the words I never heard from Minjae. "Ren," my voice failed. He got up from the swing and knelt in front of me. He didn't touch me, didn't invade anything, just stayed there, close enough for me to feel he was really there.
You don't have to like me. Not now. Maybe never. But someone needed to tell you that you deserve more than settling for scraps of attention.
My chest tightened. I wanted to respond, but all I could do was look away. With shame, with fear, with everything. He didn't insist, just smiled, and stepped back without drama, without resentment. But before leaving, he said,
I'll still be here, even if you can't see me yet. Chapter 8. I stayed silent again.
I should have said something. Anything. No. Yes. Sorry. Stay. But I stayed silent. Again. Only this time, the silence hurt differently. It wasn't the pain of longing or broken hope. It was guilt. Ren gave me a raw truth, one of those nobody wants to hear but needs to. And I just ran away. I spent the following days like someone on autopilot. Minjae kept being Minjae, called me for lunch, sent memes, poked my shoulder in boring classes, and everything in me screamed that wasn't enough anymore. I still liked him, but now I knew. I knew how much I'd gotten used to living on scraps, knew that being close doesn't always mean being together, and more than anything, knew that someone had already looked at me without me having to beg for it. Ren didn't text, didn't try to see me. He just respected my silence, like someone who understands that sometimes we need to get lost a little more to decide we finally want to find ourselves. And maybe that's what I was doing, getting lost in myself, just to discover that maybe I was already ready for something else.
Chapter 9. Minjae pulls away, and everything changes.
The semester went by, and without me noticing, Minjae's messages started decreasing. Invitations became rarer. Those random hangouts out of nowhere turned into scheduled meetings, and sometimes last-minute cancellations. Nothing bad happened. We didn't fight. There was no drama, just what happens to almost all friendships that are born from intensity and live on comfort. One day they simply dissolve in time. At first, it hurt. Then, it was a relief. I caught myself thinking about things I didn't think about before, about how much I forced an invisible role, about how exhausting it is to mold yourself to fit into someone's life who doesn't even notice. And little by little, without meaning to, I started remembering other eyes, other words, another name. Ren. I saw him a few times from afar, in the library with the same headphones around his neck, in the cafeteria, laughing with a new group, on the patio stairs, reading a book, while the world spun unhurriedly. And there was a day when I stared too long. He noticed and smiled, gently, like someone who doesn't want to demand anything. But in that smile, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, a hunger to return.
Chapter 10. He was still there.
The afternoon was calm, sky partly cloudy, warm breeze, low movement on campus. I left class early, didn't want to go home or to my usual spot. I wanted to see. And it was automatic. My feet took me to the patio stairs. There he was, Ren, sitting with the same book, the same headphones, and that same gaze that never rushed me. When I approached, he looked up, but said nothing, just looked at me, as if seeing me for the first time and also for the 1,000th. I took a deep breath and sat next to him, again without saying anything. The silence lasted a minute, 2, then I spoke. "You're still here." He turned slowly. Smiling, he said,
I said I would be.
My chest tightened, but it didn't hurt. It was light, almost good. I still want Minjae back. I confessed. But I think for the first time, I want myself more than I want him. Ren nodded, as if he knew exactly what that meant. And then I said, I don't know how to do this, but if you still want to stay, we can figure it out together. He smiled, didn't say yes, didn't need to. The way he looked at me was already an answer. We stayed there, without promises, without rush. Two boys who found each other when they'd already grown tired of searching.